Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show. And today I'm really excited because we're going to the Netherlands and we are going to have an amazing guest talking about a subject of actuality. We're going to talk about DEI, which is diversity, equality, and inclusion. And I know it's been a very important issue the last few I would say the last few years, and the things have changed significantly, but we still have a long way to go. So it's important that if you are advocating for greater investment in DEI at your in your organization, that you try to get the right tools, the right strategies, and hear from people who are working in the industry, hear from the expert, hear from the specialist. And today I bring you an expert in the subject. Her name is Vivian Acquah. She calls herself an inclusive workplace wellness advocate. So she's gonna get the opportunity to let us know what it is all about. But I think for me, I know her more as a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants. And the subject of today is going to be about amplifying diversity, equity, and inclusion for this generation and for the next. So I'm not going to stay long. I'll get Vivian to introduce herself, to let us know who she is, what she's doing, and we're going to have an exciting conversation. I know that. And as usual, if you are watching live, I invite you to participate. I invite you to get your pen and your paper and get to put, all the nuggets that Vivian is going to share with us on paper, with the objective of using them and implementing them later. Because it's one thing to put it on paper, but it's another, you go to another dimension when you get the opportunity to implement. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Vivian, and we are going to have an exciting time, I can tell you. So don't go anywhere. We are getting ready. Another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour show, the show that is brought to you by the Biray Telekima Global Leadership Organization.
Feel is important is if you just look at the word compassion, when it's behavior, it's something that can be learned, and it is something that we can embody through habits and through our daily actions.
Like, what can I do now with this all experiences that that I have? And for me, it's knowing who I am, believing in myself, and trust, and have confidence that yes, this has happened.
To get this idea that if we interject this wisdom intentionally, I call them needle movers. It's the needle mover that's missing.
I was getting my first computer when I went into undergrad, right? And so I think that stick with what you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about learning technology, you're in a great space because technology touches every industry.
So welcome, Vivian. Welcome to the Greatness Engineering Hour show. I'm just so excited to to host you, but excited about the subject because I think it's a very important subject right now. We've seen a lot of problems linked to diversity in different countries, and I'm really looking forward to have this conversation and get some good information and some good tools and strategies from you to help whoever is listening to help us to go to the next level as far as diversity is concerned. But before we get to this point, I just want you to let us know who you are and what you do and how you got to get where you are.
That's like five questions in one, but I'll try to answer them all by one. So, my name is Vivian Acquah. I'm born and raised here in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. If you're wondering, I have Ghanaian roots, and that's also one of the reasons why I wear my headscarf to honor my Ghanaian roots. And what I do is I call myself the inclusive workplace wellness advocate, combining workplace wellness and also combining diversity, equity, and inclusion, making those topics accessible for everybody. So one does not go without the other, and that's why I call myself like that. My last name is Acquah, which literally means water. So yes, I am being hired to put out fires from time to time, but I'm more a person who wants to prevent these fires from happening. See that as a prevention method, so that you can hire me for trainings, for workshops, but also challenge your people to activate, to amplify diversity, equity, and inclusion from within. That's what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm. And it's like I said, it's an important thing, and we don't we started to realize the importance of diversity, especially in the workplace.
Yeah.
Not only to the relationship between the different people involved, but also in terms of economic results. We
Yeah.
see that there's an impact. We see that diversity is really good for the return. So
Yeah.
it's an important thing that we need to get right, and really get the right strategy, the right tools to be able to to bring our company or organization or even our communities to the next level. But before we get to that, we are in in this pandemic crisis, and I think we've seen that the crisis have also amplify the divisions, and amplify the problem that we've seen so far in DEI. So how are you navigating this as a diversity expert? How why did the pandemic is bringing to you or helping you to change things, or even to rectify things?
Mm-hmm. I'm doing what I can, but I think that you are referring to the Amplify DEI Summit, which I have to share a little bit more context to why I started this initiative, because I was already working in the domain of diversity, equity, and inclusion, but I was more combining it with workplace wellness. I use
Mm-hmm.
workplace wellness as a Trojan horse. So, what happened to George Floyd last year really came close to me. It came so close that my son, who is 7, a lot of people know him. His name is Orlando, but the fact that I had to explain to a 6-year-old that what happened was merely because of George Floyd's the color of his skin, and he's biracial. So his dad is Dutch, and I'm Ghanaian, and he was looking at me saying that, is anybody going to hurt you, mom? And that
Mm-hmm.
question in itself, it paralyzed me.
Mm-hmm.
But a few days later, I got to the realization that I can be part of the solution. I'm a person who rather wants to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of the solution than, instead of doing the blame game, it's the manager, it's the company, or it's the employee's fault. No, we are here to create solutions, but also I'm here, and I believe you are here to be part of that solution. So I've gotten to know a lot of people through my Let's Humanize the Workplace, but also through my networking. I love talking. when I'm not in my introvert mode, this is the mode that people get, right? So I love talking. And I realized that my network has a lot in common when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I just simply asked them. I told them what happened to me. I told them what happened to my son, Orlando. And I asked people, do you want to join me? Because the way things were going last year, it felt like the topics related towards diversity, equity, and inclusion were not being seen important anymore. It was all about saving the company, which I understand. But if you don't have your people, if you don't unite them, what company are you saving them? Because then you have to deal with less productivity. You have to deal with less employee engagement, or employee engagement decreasing. And we all know what kind of impact that has when you want to build your business, when you want to keep your business sustainable, right? So it's the Amplified DEI Summit is basically my answer, but also an answer for my son to plant the seeds now, so that his generation, and definitely also this generation, can reap from the inclusion fruits as well.
And it's important to look at the long term, because as you just point out, organization they're just looking for short term, cutting people, not really thinking about creating the environment for their employee to enjoy working, because they don't actually see the link with the productivity. And when you start to look into it, you realize that the fact that employees are not at ease where they are, it has an impact, and a huge impact on the productivity and on the return as well. And we really need to find, like you said, bring solution up front before we get it really hard. So let's just have short break, just to see who you are again, and make sure that people understand the kind of work that you're doing.
The most important thing that people seem to forget is that the work for diversity, equity, and inclusion is everybody's responsibility. HR isn't there to solve the culture. HR is an officer who monitors the culture, or who helps create policies to improve it. Every person within the company has a responsibility to be aware of their DEI responsibility by asking this question: what can I do to boost DEI within the company? My name is Vivian Acquah, the Inclusive Workplace Wellness Advocate. I advise managers on how to keep their team members engaged, energized, and safe in a sustainable manner. What I do is make topics related to workplace wellness and diversity, equity, and inclusion accessible to everyone. I provide people with the right tools at the right time to embrace inclusive changes. I encourage people to think consciously and inspire them to take action. I did not realize that from the moment that I asked them, and from the moment that I also shared my why, they all said yes without a doubt. And that in itself is highlighting of how important diversity and inclusion can be when you activate it in your company. People will say more yes, people will ignite, people will energize, because they believe in your vision, they believe in the mission. And look what it will be doing for your business, right? Look what it will be doing for your company. When people don't feel like they belong in a team, or when people feel like they are a token, or when people feel like they need to code switch, it will impact their career and their mental well-being. It will impact their engagement in the workplace, and in return, your company is dealing with an increase of disengagement. This disengagement will negatively impact the engagement with the customer, which can result in your client ending their relationship with your business. This is how DEI is connected to employee well-being and customer engagement.
So we are back. We are back with Vivian, and we are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And my question, the question that I have, because we talk a lot about, what DEI is, but how do you measure the success of DEI? What is a successful DEI?
Well, when it comes to setting the KPIs for DEI, I mean, there are general KPIs, but also it's up to the company, up to the people to decide what they want to improve. So I can have a look at, okay, we want to improve the gender diversity within the company, or we want to invite more people from underrepresented groups, or we want to create a better environment for the LGBTQ community. It is up to the people to decide what are the top 3 things or what are the top 5 things that they want to work on so that they can improve it. You cannot compare yourself with a Google, or you cannot compare yourself with a Microsoft company if you have a team of 30 people. So start with something from within, start with your community, start with your people, and set the goals that you want to improve to make it better. You're muted, Mireille.
And that's and I think that's a key statement to make, because sometimes we feel like when you work, I don't know what is your experience, but for certain organization they want to copy what other organization are doing,
Yeah.
and yet they don't have the same problem. They have to find the problems that they have, and then find the solution that are adapted to their problems, and
Yeah.
they need to be selective, like you said, on
And
what they want to address,
and also
and
make it a we. It's
mhm,
about us collectively
mhm,
making the environment better. It's not about HR, or like I said in the video, it's the work for DEI. There seems to be a misplacement when it comes to the word for DEI, thinking that it should only belong to HR, or it
mhm,
should only belong to the legal team, or it should only belong to the C suite. No,
mhm,
you as an employee, you as a manager, you as a self leader are also responsible for improving diversity, equity, and inclusion within your environment, within your team, within your department. And that's what I'm advocating for, that we should change the perspective when it comes to DEI and make it an everybody
mhm,
awareness.
But how do you implement that? Because as you know, a lot of there's a lot of hierarchy in companies, in
Hmm.
organization. So how do you make sure the person at the bottom, which is somewhere not known by anybody, knows the value of DEI, and actually have a voice? Because that's the problem. It goes from the top down. So how do people down go and speak to them and make their voice heard?
Hmm. There are different ways to go to that, but one of the most important thing is you have to have leadership buy-in. If you are starting a DEI initiative without any leadership buy-in, know that you are killing yourself softly,
Mm-hmm,
because nobody from the leadership team is supporting your initiative, and that's why it is important to have that. But once you are there, once they are convinced, and once they not only convinced but are willing to
mm-hmm,
invest, because that's an essential thing, willing to invest not only the time but also money.
mm-hmm,
From there you can activate people within the team, or from there you can start your ERG communities to let's say pass the baton,
mm-hmm,
inspire other people to join this movement as well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just heard what you said, invest time and money. and that
Mm-hmm.
and that's sometimes the problem, when we
Mm-hmm.
go up and we say, okay, we want to implement this. I mean, there's a lot of investment in time, a lot of investment in money, but the return is not immediate. So
Yeah.
that's one of the blocker, when you go to the leadership, and you can't actually quantify what's gonna come out of it. So
You
how do
can.
you?
There are ways that you can quantify, but the only thing is, you also have to realize that productivity is golden. Having
Mhm,
advocates, having ambassadors in the company, that's gold. So when you activate DEI from within, when you tap into that magical or unicorn button, which I call it. You have a way to empower people from yourself, whereas
Mm-hmm.
you are spending less on marketing because there now you have your people advocating
Mm-hmm.
about how good your company is, how good your company is taking care of women or women in the workplace, how good your company is taking care for
Mm-hmm.
working mothers, but also how good your company is for parents in general. That's golden.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so what are what do you think are the blockers? Because it looks like DEI from from what we hear,
Yeah.
it's all good. It's for the good of everybody. But why do we have those blockers? Why it is not happening? In some
Okay, I'll
organization.
share I think I'll share a top three because if I have to, reveal
Mm-hmm.
all the blockers, I don't think that within that hour we have enough time. But one of the blocker is there is fear involved. Fear
Mm-hmm.
involved in maybe saying the wrong thing, but also fear involved in opening Pandora's box because once you have opened up that Pandora's box, as in, okay, we want to do more with DEI, and then what I see happening is that people, leaders, companies need to invest in a coach, in a DEI coach to support them in their journey. This journey, it's not a romantic journey, it's not a Disney journey, it's a journey about agreeing to disagree, but it's also a journey about learning to respect with each other. And sometimes you can bump heads, right? Sometimes you can agree, or sometimes you can end up in a conflict situation, which is not always easy. But when you start this journey without creating some kind of a value or creating the rules of engagement or defining, we want to do better, these are the steps that we are making, and these are the things that we want to do in this year. Transparency is also missing. Another thing, so number two is the thing that I would say is thinking that when you have done one action within diversity, equity, and inclusion, so maybe thinking, referring to what happened to last year, where a lot of companies were posting all these black squares showing the support for Blackout Tuesday, know that your people, but also your clients, they now have access to social media where they can check, are you doing the right thing and are you walking the talk? Because if you're not walking the talk, that's where the calling out comes from. That's where the accountability comes from. So whatever it is that you're doing, start from the inside out. Make sure that the program or the initiatives that you have are solid. So test it first, work on it first, and then talk about it on the outside. I see now, what I see is that companies saying, yes, within 5 years, we are going to do this. What steps are you going to take within 1 year? Be transparent about it. And first, say it to your people instead of saying it towards your external stakeholders. You have to work with your internal stakeholders first. Oh yeah, number three. I talk so much on number three. Not investing in raising awareness when it comes to DEI training. And I have to put it on quote because there's so much word about the DEI training where DEI training is used as a one night stand training. No, I want you to invest in the DEI training, as see it as a marathon, see it as you are going to the gym. And unfortunately, when you go to the gym, you don't change your body in one setting. You have to exercise, you have to remind people, but also create toolkits or create events where people understand why your company is supporting these initiatives, but also why your company is valuing diversity, equity, and inclusion and providing a space for everybody to be themselves.
We have few comments from Liliane. Liliane is
Mm-hmm.
watching from Switzerland, and there's a long one. We'll try to get.
Yeah,
So she believes that leadership, diversity, equity, and inclusion is everybody's
yeah.
business. So that's what you were referring to.
Mm-hmm.
We are so used to look up to those up, the leaders, and
Yeah.
hoping they will bring, the change that we need. And yet, we have to be proactive. I think we should acknowledge that we are leaders, and leaving change on the shoulders is going
Yeah.
to take, edges for change. And so it's really time to raise the next generation to see themselves as, leaders, irrespective of their level.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were mentioning just right now. And she agrees that transparency is
Mm-hmm.
key, and that and she's saying that most companies use it
Yeah.
as a marketing tool more than anything, and we can now clearly see that they did not walk the talk. and
Yeah.
and that's my problem, is really, you see a lot of talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, but in a way they're not putting in any effort,
Yeah.
and like you said, looking inside and trying to get, something that is going to be sustainable. It's more about marketing. It's basically the subject of the day is, it looks cool, it was good, so that's what we're going to say, we're going to put in our message, and that's it.
But I also have to give credit to the companies that are doing well. So let's say last week I was in an online conversation, or let's say a discussion about IKEA. IKEA is making a lot of investment when it comes to diversity and inclusion, but sometimes they forget to mention what they are doing. Similar towards Lego, right? Lego is doing a lot, or Lego is doing a lot when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But when you don't put that narrative there, people will assume that, oh, you are creating this product just because you want, you want to activate performative diversity. Not all the people will have time to research all the efforts that your company is doing. So let's say this comment is for the people in the back. Not everybody can hear what you're saying. So this comment is for the people in the back. If you are if you have something special coming up for diversity, equity, and inclusion, or you have a team coming up, please mention a link, a line saying that these are the initiatives that we have done. Click here so that they can go to the page and see what you're doing for instance, for the LGBT community, or see that you're doing for the Black ERG group, or see what you're doing for the women group, or see what you're doing for parents. We have to add in more transparency. So what I say is add the T to the SMART. I call them the SMART goals, instead of only showing what you're doing. Add some more context, because not everybody has the time like we have to investigate what companies are doing.
And you're right. I think it's something that is missing, where because there's so much noise. I mean, there's so much marketing. So even those who are doing well, they get
Yeah.
lost into all the noise. And
Yeah.
it's important that they find a platform or a way to get their message out, to stand out, and really show that they're really doing the job. And show the result, because sometimes it's just about showing, the result and how things are working, instead of doing a lot of noise.
And it's
And
also very easy to blame a company, right? So a company that is doing good work, but unfortunately there are always bad raisins or bad apples in working in a company. Does that mean that that company should be discredited? No. They acknowledge what happened, and they say that we are going to do our best to make it better. That's it. We also have to give companies or people the time to improve, because otherwise we are lacking that growth mindset when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, thinking that everything should be, should be good, should be perfect. But we're dealing with people. Sometimes people, we fall. I fall. I have my own biases. You have your biases. Everybody has their own biases. I'm a person.
And I just remember something that you said before, that it's a journey, and in a journey you have up and
Yes.
downs, and
Yeah.
that's what we need to understand is, in this journey of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're gonna fall at some time, but we have to keep going to make it, thing sustainable, because
Yeah.
it's basically a lifetime in a company.
It's a
Or in,
marathon.
yes, so that's important. So Liliane is really very active today, and we should also agree that the people whom, the fighting is for diversity are on their own journey too.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way journey, so the company and the people too. And I think the big, challenge is to reconcile, the two. And sometimes,
The challenge can be reconciled because there are tools out there where people can literally walk in somebody else's shoes. If you would have that experience of a refugee for one day, what it means to leave your home, what it means to leave your family behind because you feel unsafe, and you go to an unknown country because you want to rebuild your life. You would have a different opinion if you would only experience one day of their life. We are so quick to judge, not realizing, not taking the effort or making the effort to understand there is an other side to this land. There is an other side. And I am inviting people to listen to each other, but also together. I want you to look in the mirror with me together so that I can share what I see and so that you can share what you see and then learn from that experience.
And listening, and that's the part of leadership that sometimes we forget. The listening part,
and empathy.
And empathy as well.
Yeah.
So you have to communicate well, but listening is key, and we often forget this part of leadership. So wow, very interesting conversation. So let's have another break, and we'll be back in this and continue the conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how do we amplify it for this generation and the next, because as we said, it has to be sustainable, so it's from generation to generation. So don't go anywhere. We will be back in the excitement of this conversation. So we are back, and we've seen in the video there's a talk of technology, and one thing that I really wanted to ask you, we are in the middle of this fourth industrial revolution, things going fast, people communicating now through the digital, in the digital world, but yet we still have people who don't have access to electricity and struggling. So how do we create this inclusion and make sure that they're not left behind?
I believe that we need to pay it forward or pay back. So the way that I see it right now is when you look, it's a very relevant situation right now where you see that the Western countries are vaccinated. But
Mm-hmm.
what about the rest?
Mm-hmm.
How come we are not investing in the company in the countries that don't have that money or and still provide that safety so that the whole world is proper vaccinated, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's also another way to see the division. But also, what I see is that the companies that do have money, what is your percentage when it comes to the SDG goals? How are
Mm-hmm.
you tying it into the social goals? How are you tied it into the environmental goals by paying it forward? Because we cannot assume that only the oil companies should invest in the
Mm-hmm.
environmental goals. We all have a way to play in that role as well. So the way that I try to give back is by working on the part where we are creating inclusive workplaces, because everybody needs to have an inclusive workplace.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's a difficult one because
Hmm.
like you said, we clearly see the gap, between
Yeah,
those who have, everything and the rest, which
yeah,
is,
yeah.
lagging behind, and it is a problem. It is a
It is
problem.
definitely a problem, but we
It
are
is a
still, there are still, rich people out there who are spending money on
mm-hmm.
space shuttles. I'm not going to name them, but you can assume who they are. Billions of dollars. Well, I'm just thinking like, okay, but what about Mother Earth?
Exactly.
Why are we trying to ruin and find a new planet or
If
find a new home to
mm-hmm.
be on whilst we are here on Mother Earth, making Mother Earth a little bit better?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's the paradox, really. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you don't really understand,
Yeah.
what goes into their mind, because at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, giving a little bit will not actually affect them. So why don't they do that? And it's really difficult. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's when obviously technology is one thing where there's a gap and where inclusion can become a problem, and there's also a subject that actually it's really dear to my heart, which is woman empowerment and
Yeah.
women you know taking their place into this
Mm-hmm.
whole system, into this world, especially going higher and being in a position of leadership. And we
Yeah.
can see that there's still a long way to go. So I just wanted to ask you, what do you think we should focus on, going forward, having gone through this pandemic and having seen the limitation? What can women can do to build this pipeline to the top and have more women in a position of leadership or decision making?
After reading into how many women are leaving the workplace because of this pandemic and because we are going back into traditional roles where women take care of the house, women cook, women take care of the kids, right? We want to prevent that. So how I see, I'm going to share two tips.
Mm-hmm.
One tip is for the organization, for the leaders, is to provide a mentorship or a sponsorship program from within, providing them tools so that they can advance in their career. And woman, this message is for you. And I wish that I heard this early on in my career when I started out. Find yourself a sponsor, not a mentor, a sponsor. So what's the difference? A mentor is somebody who guides you, who can support you through your journey. A sponsor is a person who can open up the door, invite you into their rooms, into their network, open you up for a whole new world. no pun intended, but it is a whole new world. We need to take ownership of our own career, of our own goals. So instead of waiting upon your manager or waiting upon a company, join a women's network, a leadership network. Find where, find where all the women leaders are, or find a mentoring program where you can also give back. You don't always need to have a sponsor, but you can become a sponsor yourself by giving back to the next generation, or giving back to somebody you can identify with and say, hey, she looks like me when I started. Let me open the door for her. Let me invite her in the same in this at the same event so that she can see how things are going, right? I want you to take ownership of that. And I have two book tips that I want to share when it comes to leaders, but also when it comes to the individual. Minda Hart has a book called Women Own Your Seat, or The Memo. It's the memo where she is sharing a lot of tips about women claiming their own seat at the table. So don't wait until somebody hands you the chair. Claim your seat at the table. Another book that I want to share is Career Rehab by Kanika Tolver. I both interviewed Kanika and Minda Hart, where she talks about career rehab. Sometimes we are in a situation where the workplace right now isn't helping our career. Instead of leaving that workplace with, if you might have left with a broken heart or grudge, or let's say the split wasn't, amicable, it wasn't good, you need to recover from that. You need to recover so that you don't bring that luggage into your new workplace, and then it will start over and over again. But also, what you need to do is to become a brand. My name is Vivian Acquah, and I own Viva La Vive. I own Amplify DEI. When people think about those names or the three names, they know it's that lady with the purple hair. They know it's a lady with who's maybe wearing the headscarf. So own your brand.
And the branding is important. The branding
Hmm.
is important.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and that's my experience, women are sometimes very shy to push themselves, to brand themselves, and to just tell the world who they are, because
Yeah.
I think they always have this feeling, this imposter syndrome, that who am
But
I to actually,
it's
yeah.
instilled with women, because I have a son right now, and the way that he brags about himself, it's a different experience for me. The way that I was brought up as a lady: sit
Mm-hmm.
quiet, put your legs across, be quiet, be polite, be this, be that. So we are putting in all seats towards girls where they are supposed to behave in a certain way. And if we promote ourselves, it feels unnatural. I had
Mm-hmm.
to unlearn a lot of the things that I learned because of my culture, because of the way I was operating. But also I had to learn that it's okay to promote
Mm-hmm.
yourself. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay to stand out, and I do stand out. I'm 1 meter 86, so very tall, but it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to stand out. It's okay to promote yourself. It's okay to do something as long as it fits your values, as long as it fits you. I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes still have a challenging time to promote myself, but
Mm-hmm.
I do it in a way where it fits me and it fits my
Mm-hmm.
energy as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And the energy is very important. You
Mm-hmm.
need to understand, your energy and how you
Yeah.
come across, and
Yeah.
really push this message through, because nobody's gonna do it for you.
Exactly.
You have to take the time and really do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever people feel, it's important that you are okay with yourself, and that's the most important thing.
I
So,
love what
uh,
Lillian shared.
so
Yeah.
Lillian said, we
Yeah.
know by now that our relationship, be it in love or business, will become where the last relationship ended. So we
Yeah.
need to learn to unlearn and clean up. I love it
Mm.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a complete cleanup that you need to do. Otherwise, you keep on, bringing the same emotion, the same energy, and expect a different result, which is not
Exactly.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's really important to
The same thing,
understand that.
that quote by Einstein, it's the same thing that goes for companies.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that you can hire the same people, thinking that you can create the similar teams, and
Mm-hmm.
expect different results. That's why
Mm-hmm.
diversity is key in this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's why diversity. I had a an interesting experience when I
Hmm.
started working, and I joined a company where almost everybody was coming from the same university,
Yeah,
same
yeah,
background, and
yeah.
then you come in, it's just not diverse at all. They
No,
make the same decision, they make and no creativity at all. And after that, they were asking themselves, how can we know we're not evolving? No, you're
no.
hiring the same people from the same universities and same background. How do you expect anything, anyone to challenge you? You've had the same, you've been in the same box. And it was really awkward to come into it and see how people were just thinking. It's like having the same person several times, thinking exactly the same,
Yeah, but also
because
it's
that's what.
tiring to be the only one amongst
Exactly.
people, right? Because sometimes it can create a tokenized situation where
Mm-hmm.
it's you versus them. It's
Yeah.
always you versus them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And we could see it, in the in the progression.
Mm-hmm.
You could see that they were progressing people that looked like them, people that
Yeah,
went into the same
yeah.
schools, and it was basically a very closed cycle. So
I
really,
also have
really
something to
interesting.
add. I also have something to add because you tapped into something like you can see people promoting the same people.
Mm-hmm.
Figure out how many people are excelling in their performance
Mm-hmm.
and also figure out if they received a promotion money wise, but also role wise.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time in these cases, you can see that the men performed well. And when the women outperform, they are not getting that promotion money wise, but also they are not getting promoted to a new role. So
Mm-hmm.
do an audit trail when it comes to promotions and do an audit trail also when it comes to performance reviews. Who's
Mm-hmm.
getting the money?
Mm-hmm. And that's why I left corporate, because I
Mm-hmm.
just realized that I was, sometime giving more and
Yeah,
bringing more results,
yeah,
but I was not moving.
yeah. You
So
were not acknowledged. No.
yeah, I was not acknowledged. It
Yeah,
was really okay. You've done a good job. Thank you. But when you ask, or when no, they've always find an excuse to keep you where you are,
yeah,
and that was that's what I said. Okay, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna try something else, because I'm just too static here. So
yeah, yeah.
it's uh it's really very very interesting, actually. And
It
things are
is.
changing. I think for me, I think that women have, it's the right time for women to really take back their power, because there's so much to be done. And because of the nature of how we are, always trying to, especially in a very ever changing world and complex, we know, we've been in those situations. So it's about time that we step into our power and really take the lead
Yeah,
and get going, because otherwise we're not going to get another time like that. It's a
exactly.
very important thing.
And we
So
owe it to our kids. We owe it to the next generation
we
as well
owe
to
it
do
to the
better.
next generation to do
Yeah.
better and get this diversity really working, because it's like wealth. You have to
Mm-hmm.
create generational wealth, you have to create generational diversity. And that's an important thing for the world to work properly, and to have people to get the chance, everybody to get an equal chance. So I mean, we're getting close to the end, and one thing that I really wanted to know is, what is your aspiration? I mean, you've been focusing a lot of your work
Mm-hmm.
on DEI, and so what's next? I mean, obviously continuing, but what really is the legacy that you want to leave?
The legacy is when I started this journey, I did it out of an answer so that I can support my son into him becoming a grown adult, but also into him working in a more inclusive space.
Mm-hmm.
I know now that there's so much work to be done that I want to amplify the world internationally. So that's why Amplify DEI, it's going to be a yearly summit where together we are going to create a ripple effect to inspire people, not to challenge them, inspire them to move the needle towards better. It's about time.
It's about time. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's and that's it's actually quite urgent. I must say,
Yeah.
it's quite urgent to start, changing things and get the next generation to understand the importance of DEI and implement it into everything
Yeah.
that they do, and then have this in their in their mind. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an important thing. And I think Liliane is alluding to it, like she said also, as they educate
Yes.
their kids,
Yes.
it's key
Yes.
too. Parents
Yeah.
would help in this conversation by leading by example. And that's really what we're talking about, is that we have to show the example,
Yeah.
because we can talk about it, but if we don't show the example, nothing happen. And
That's
that's
also one of the reasons why I did a Let's Humanize the Workplace interview where I shared together with other mothers. I shared the DEI perspective from a parent's lens because we don't realize how our kids are being impacted with this whole DEI situation at the moment.
okay. So really, there's still a lot to be done,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but we're getting there. And I think, conversation like that are very important. We
Yeah.
have to share, we have to, talk, we have to listen. I think that's also, in diversity, listen to people who are different from us
Mm-hmm.
and see how we can meet them where they are, or
Yeah.
find a way to get everybody to collaborate and to
Yeah.
understand that we can live together, and we don't have to judge people because they can bring still positive things into our life, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the key thing for now. So it has been a really interesting conversation, exciting, with a lot of a lot of insight from you. So how do people get in contact with you if they want to continue this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, or and you've obviously mentioned the Amplify DEI, which is coming, or any,
Yes.
is there
You
anything else
didn't
that you
mention
want to
that you are
share?
a speaker. You didn't
I'm a
mention
speaker. I'm a
that.
speaker at Amplify DEI. Yes, I am a speaker, and I'm excited. I'm getting ready to really push this message as well,
Mm-hmm.
DEI, because I've mostly worked in male-dominated industry, and I have my story as well. So it's
Yeah.
important that I share it and share the tools and strategy that I've used to
Yeah.
be able to navigate the process. But it's about you today, and
Yeah, true,
let us
true.
know.
Thank you, thank you. What I can do is I can share two things to not make it complex. So you can connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn, Vivian Acquah, or use the hashtag Amplify DEI to find me. But also remember the summit is going to be 27th till 29th of September, and I already have 70 speakers who are going to show up. When I say that it's the most diverse conference summit that I ever seen, where you see a lot of color, but you also see the inner layer of the diversity wheel. I can say check. I can say intersectionality, check. And I can say summit with a heart, check. And that to me makes me more proud because I'm leaving something behind for our kids.
And that's really what we're trying to do here. Make sure we leave a legacy, make sure
Exactly.
we bring those tools, ideas, and support people for them to understand that they're not just sitting there, they have a role to play. They have things to, they can bring positive things and create positive impacts wherever they are. It's not just about the leaders next door, it's about ourselves, really understanding that we have a part to play into DEI. We have a part to play when there's racism, we have a part to play when there's
Yes.
poverty, we have a part to play all the time. We don't have to wait to Exactly. We don't have to wait to anybody. We can, initiate something and bring people along, and that's how we show our leadership. So thank you so much. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you for
Vivian,
having me.
for gracing me your presence here on the Greatness Engineering Hour show. It's been, like I said, very insightful, and I thank you for sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your vision, of DEI, because I think it's really important to put it, on the agenda and talk about it now, because it's
Yeah.
part of everything that we do,
Hmm.
especially if we want to bring back humanity together
Exactly.
and create, a good legacy to leave to
Yeah.
our children and, the generation to come. So thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. Like I said, it's been amazing. And for those, who are going to watch the replay, please don't hesitate to, comment, and we'll see, if we need to address your comment, and I will pass, if you have questions, pass the question to Vivian, and then she will address it as she can. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a great day. Enjoy the
You
rest of your
too.
day, and I've enjoyed definitely spending this hour with you, and we've definitely engineered greatness today. So thank you so much.
I only have one thing to say.
Okay, go ahead.
Awesome. Awesome.
Oh, thank you, thank you so much. We'll probably get you back, especially after the summit, to know
Mm,
exactly, how things have come along, and if there is, a particular message to bring as well. So
thank you.
everybody, take care, and see you, next week for another episode of the Greatness Engineering Hour. Thank you, Vivian, and take care. Bye.
Bye.